Let me now introduce security analyst Olivier Guita. He joins me in the studio now. We were hearing from Munich police a little bit earlier. They are saying that they have an acute terrorist situation on their hands. They say that they suspect a terror attack. These are the reports that we were getting earlier. But at the same time, we heard from police, they're saying just be very careful about jumping to conclusions concerning specific affiliations and terrorist links in terms of those behind the attack. What do you make of that?
Indeed, it's a very fluid and it's a very confusing situation when you compare it to the attacks in Nice or Paris or Brussels, where, you know, after a few hours, we knew a lot of things. Here, we're completely in the dark. A couple of things that are to be reckoned with is 3 days ago, there was the first Islamic State attack in Germany, in Wurzburg, on the train with the Afghan refugees. So that's number one. Second, we know for a fact that Germany is a top tier 1 country for Islamic State when it comes to targets. Yesterday, the German Minister of Interior warned of potential imminent terror attacks. Those are the signs that would point out towards Islamic State or a jihadist group being behind it. But there's one troubling issue that's been keeping me to be really sure about this, is the fact that one of the gunmen allegedly killed himself, shot himself in the head. We haven't had cases of jihadists killing themselves in the recent years in Paris.
So this is something that strikes you as very unusual?
Yes, they usually die as martyrs, as trying to kill the police or killing people. That's what we've seen in
Can you give us
Europe.
a sense of the mentality or the attitude of this person, their psychological state? What would prompt them to shoot themselves in the head as police are closing in, which is the report that is unconfirmed, but this is the information that we have?
A couple of reasons. One would be not to be able to reveal any kind of information about the plot. But at the same time, it is very strange as far as the modus operandi that we've seen in the past. The fact that there are still 3 gunmen on the loose is still puzzling when it comes to the different attacks. It's not a coordinated attack like we had in Paris in November, for instance.
So this is interesting. What we have here, it's not a coordinated attack that we saw in Paris, where you had multiple attacks taking place, clearly very well planned, taking place nearly simultaneously in cafes and restaurants in one part of the city, in the Stade de France Stadium, and then also at the Bataclan Concert Hall. And then we have the attack in Nice, which is also still, you know, there are still question marks over that, because we were initially led to believe that this was a self-radicalized lone wolf attacker, a bit like the Afghan miner who perpetrated the attack on the German train. And then later on, I think just yesterday, intelligence information from France suggested that not only was the attack in Nice months in the making, but he had help.
Exactly. We are learning day after day that there are less and less lone wolves. There are much more prepared people to attack the West. But in this specific case, at the same time, if some of the reports that I've seen are correct about the gunman saying I'm German and venting about foreigners, that is a different scenario than Islamic State, you know, claiming...
In what way is it different? What are you focusing on?
In a way, I wouldn't see Islamic State going and venting about foreigners as much as a potential right-wing extremist.
Right.
So we have to be extremely careful.
We're not suggesting any claims of responsibility. We're not suggesting any links or affiliations at this point. Absolutely no assumptions can be made. But when you look at the circumstances of what took place, the sort of complexion of the entire attack itself and the way it played out, this is, you know, there could be other groups.
Exactly. That's from what we know. But as I said, from all the attacks we had in the past year and a half in the West, this is the most confusing one after already 4 or 5 hours.
So when you try and compare it to what we've seen in the last few months, the last few years, and you're drawing comparisons and parallels, this is, there is a great deal that we don't know. This is more confusing than the aftermath of past attacks.
Very much so, and the fact that, you know, there are still allegedly 3 gunmen on the loose would mean possibly that either they're running away or they're planning other attacks, and that will tell us also a lot more things about their ideology and their modus operandi.
And police have suggested that there is definitely more than one perpetrator. There's more than one assailant. There are reports of there being up to 3 assailants, all armed. No one has been apprehended. There's this confusing report of one of the gunmen shooting themselves in the head as police were closing in, but we're still, it's a very fluid situation, as you say. Could there be, at this point, from the information that we have, could there be a mistake in the way all of this is being interpreted? I mean, could it be one assailant or could it be more than 3?
It is possible. Unfortunately, in the past, we've seen that initial information may turn out to be wrong, especially when it comes from eyewitnesses that may be under, you know, the horror of the situation they've seen. But as I said, I'm perplexed and puzzled that German police is even saying that for them it's very confusing.
That's right. They've been very open about that, and I think that is also why in the press conference that we saw earlier, the police spokesman was really speaking to the media and saying, please be careful, please be cautious, do not jump to any conclusions at this point because you're going to make the situation worse.
Exactly. I think you're right. It's very honest from them to say that, but at the same time, they're telling people to stay home, so they have the inclination of thinking that the 3 gunmen are not going to run away to another country and disappear, but could possibly be targeting other sites in Munich.
Olivier Guiter, we will definitely chat to you some more, just looking at some of the latest reports that we're getting. Munich newspaper being quoted by Reuters saying that 7 people have been killed in the shooting in Munich.